was having an inappropriate sexual relationship with his underage niece.
It was a Wednesday, December 19th, 2018, the last week of school before Christmas break. Teenagers at Terry Parker High School in Jacksonville were thinking about holiday parties, last-minute assignments, and winter freedom. Except one girl was thinking about something else entirely. Iana Sawyer, 16 years old, 5 months pregnant, and still showing up every morning with her books, her backpack, and that quiet determination she always carried. She didn't complain. She didn't cry for help. She didn't act like she was afraid. But maybe she was. That day, Iana left class early, just after 11 a.m. A surveillance camera captured her walking out of the school building alone. She told the front office she had a family appointment, said her uncle was picking her up. That same uncle whom she had always called trustworthy. The one her mom had always warned her to respect. The one everyone believed had her best interest at heart. But Iana never came back. She never returned to school. She never made a home. She never sent another text message. And no one saw her again. At first, people assumed she ran away. After all, she was pregnant. Maybe she cracked under the pressure. Maybe she got scared. That's what they thought. That's what he wanted them to think. But soon, investigators would discover a much darker truth. A truth buried under layers of silence, family trust, and a horrific secret no child should ever carry. What happened to Iana didn't begin that morning. It didn't start at the school gates, or even when she got in the car with her uncle. It began long before, behind closed doors, in places where no one was looking, in moments where no one was listening. And by the time the truth surfaced, Iana was already gone. This is not just the story of a missing girl. It's not just the story of a murder. It's the story of how trust can be weaponized, how silence can protect a predator, and how a family's darkest betrayal was hiding in plain sight. It began as a routine school day, but by nightfall, something was wrong. Iana Sawyer had not come home. Her phone was off. Her social media, silent. Her last seen location, the front office at Terry Parker High School. She'd signed out early for a family emergency. That emergency didn't exist. Her uncle, 33-year-old Jonathan Lled, was the one she was reportedly meeting. But when police questioned him, his story kept changing. He claimed he didn't see Iana that day. Then he said maybe she came by the salvage yard briefly. Then he wasn't sure. It didn't take long for inconsistencies to pile up. Family members gave vague or conflicting timelines. No one seemed to know why Iana had left school. No one, not even her mother, had heard from her since 11 a.m.
Ma'am, I have no idea. This is not like, this is out of character for her. And for me to call you all, something's wrong.
Surveillance footage confirmed she'd left alone, walking calmly toward the pickup area. The only known destination, Jonathan's auto shop, the same one he'd worked at for years. The same one where he claimed to be all day, alone. And then, one chilling detail changed everything. A confidential family source told detectives. Iana was pregnant, 16 years old, 5 months along, quiet, reserved, and not dating anyone. That detail turned an already tragic missing person case into something far more disturbing. The father of the unborn baby wasn't a teenage boyfriend, wasn't a stranger. It was her uncle, Jonathan Lled, her legal guardian during the week, a man she was supposed to trust. That one revelation cracked the case wide open, not just because of who he was, but because it revealed what he was hiding. Now, it wasn't just about where Iana went. It was about why she had to disappear. Detectives now had to answer a question far more chilling than where is Iana? They needed to know, what had he done to her? And how long had this gone unnoticed? Once the paternity of the baby was confirmed, detectives brought Jonathan Lled in for formal questioning. The interviews were unsettling. Lled showed no panic, no concern, and more importantly, no remorse. He denied any involvement in Iana's disappearance at first, but when presented with cell tower data, security footage, and most damning of all, the DNA confirmation, his story crumbled. According to statements made by Lled's own brother, Joseph Lled, Jonathan confessed to the killing. He allegedly told him that he'd shot Iana in the head. that he'd placed her body in a dumpster, that the dumpster was picked up by a waste company and sent to the Otis Road landfill. That admission triggered a massive search operation at the landfill. A grim, nearly impossible mission. 5,300 acres of trash compressed and layered. But no trace of Iana was ever recovered. Her body, to this day, has never been found. Despite the lack of a body, investigators built their case. And in the most damning moment of trial testimony, his own family took the stand against him. Joseph Lled told the courtroom. He looked me in the eye and said, "I had to get rid of her. She was going to ruin everything." When pressed further in interviews, Lled admitted to having sexual contact with Iana. He spoke with chilling detachment, as if none of it mattered. For Iana's family, the betrayal was overwhelming. This wasn't just a crime of violence. It was a crime of control, a systematic abuse of power. A predator embedded in the family, trusted, respected, even loved. He destroyed a young girl's life and her future to protect his secret. But it didn't work. In the face of mounting evidence, the court found him guilty on all counts. The sentence: 3 consecutive life terms without parole. But for those who loved Iana, the justice system could only go so far, because there's still no grave, no body. Only a question that still haunts this case to this day. Where is Iana Sawyer? It was more than a trial. It was a reckoning. By the time Jonathan Lled entered a Jacksonville courtroom in early 2020, the community already knew his name, but they didn't know the depth of what he had done. The courtroom was tense. Iana's mother sat front row, clutching a framed photo of her daughter in a white dress. Her eyes swollen from sleepless nights, her hands trembling as testimony began. There was no body, no physical remains, but the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors built their case brick by brick. DNA proof that Lled was the father of Iana's unborn child. Phone records placing him at the auto yard, the last known location of Iana. Surveillance footage of Iana leaving school and vanishing into thin air. Witnesses recounting strange behavior, inappropriate touches, and late-night texts. His own brother's testimony, claiming Lled had confessed to killing her and disposing of her body in a dumpster. One line from that testimony silenced the room. He said he did it because she was going to tell her mother, and he couldn't let that happen. Inside the courtroom, every detail felt heavier than the last. But it was when detectives took the stand, recounting what they'd heard from Lled himself, that the atmosphere changed. He admitted to sexual contact with Iana. He acknowledged the pregnancy, but he denied killing her. The contradictions only deepened. And then, in a moment that drew audible gasps from the gallery, the prosecution played a chilling excerpt from a recorded jailhouse phone call. Lled, laughing with a relative, said, "They can't prove nothing without a body. Cold, calculated, smug, as if the absence of her body erased the truth. But it didn't, because Iana's presence, even in her absence, was undeniable. Her text messages, her voice notes, her friends who testified about how withdrawn she became in those final weeks. Her school counselor, who revealed Iana had once whispered, 'I'm scared to go home sometimes.' The prosecution rested its case with one haunting question. What kind of monster murders his own niece just to silence her? The jury deliberated for less than a day, and when the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, the sentence, life in prison, without the possibility of parole. No emotion crossed his face, just a blank stare, as if he still believed he'd outsmarted everyone. But outside the courtroom, it was a different story. The case exploded across Florida and beyond. Headlines screamed, "Body still missing, family demands answers." Child sexual abuse ignored until too late. On social media, hashtags trended. Hashtag justice for Iana. Hashtag protect our girls. Parents began demanding more school counselor screenings. Nonprofits launched awareness campaigns around incestuous abuse, a topic often shrouded in silence. Survivors came forward. Stories surfaced from across the country of young girls silenced by relatives, shamed into secrecy, ignored by systems meant to protect them. And in Jacksonville, something shifted. A local journalist summed it up best. This wasn't just the murder of a girl. This was the system failing her every step of the way. Iyanna's school came under scrutiny for allowing her to leave early that day. Questions were raised about how a 16-year-old, visibly pregnant, managed to keep that pregnancy secret from teachers, doctors, even family friends. The community, once close-knit and quiet, erupted with grief and guilt. And as candles burned on her vigil site outside Terry Parker High, people whispered the same line over and over. How didn't we see this coming? For her family, the pain was unrelenting. Her mother told reporters, "I don't get to bury my baby. I don't get to say goodbye." He took that from me too. But she also said something else, something powerful. "My daughter's voice was stolen, but it's our job now to make sure it's heard." Where's Iyanna? Even after the trial ended, even after the sentence was handed down, the nightmare didn't stop. Iyanna Sawyer was gone. Her body never found. Her voice silenced in ways too painful to comprehend. For her family, justice didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival, inch by inch, through a grief that had no shape, no end. Her mother, heartbroken and hollowed out, would later say, "He didn't just take her from us. He took our ability to lay her to rest, to hug her one last time, to say goodbye." Each day became a ritual of remembering. Watching old home videos, listening to saved voicemails, touching clothes left untouched in her closet. Her siblings struggled in silence, some turning inward, some lashing out. One of her brothers stopped going to school altogether. The family home, once filled with laughter, became a place of stillness, haunted not by ghosts, but by what could never be spoken. Every birthday, every Christmas, every passing school bus, a reminder of the future Iyanna never got to live. But they weren't alone. The community rallied in ways no one expected. Within days of the trial's conclusion, a vigil was organized outside Terry Parker High School, where Iyanna had last been seen. Hundreds showed up. Some knew her personally. Many didn't. They came with candles, hand-painted signs, and tear-streaked faces. A choir of classmates sang Amazing Grace. Her best friend read a poem Iyanna once wrote in English class about wanting to travel the world, to become a nurse, to help children. One line from that poem has since been etched into a mural near the school gates. "I want to help others feel safe in their skin because I didn't always feel safe in mine." The school eventually installed a memorial bench in her name. A pink ribbon was painted on the back, Iyanna's favorite color. But beneath the gestures, the grief lingered. And with it came questions. Tough ones. How could this happen? How did no one notice the signs? Who failed her? In the months following the verdict, Iyanna's case became a flashpoint in Florida's legal and social justice circles. Lawmakers faced pressure from activists, parents, and child welfare advocates demanding change. How are familial abusers slipping through the cracks? Why isn't there mandated reporting for unusual behavior between minors and relatives? How many other Iyannas are suffering in silence, under the same roof as their abuser? In response, a state-level task force was formed, dedicated to re-evaluating how schools and child protection agencies handle reports of suspected intrafamily abuse. One reform proposed, but reforms weren't enough for many, because no matter how many bills passed, Iyanna was still gone. And Jonathan Quiles, the man who had shared family dinners, posed in Christmas photos, and once helped Iyanna with homework, had destroyed everything from within. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a shadowy figure hiding in the dark. He was family, and that, above all else, was the hardest truth to live with. I still wait for her to walk into class. She was the one who always made you laugh, even when things were bad. We didn't know. We just didn't know what she was going through. Teachers, classmates, neighbors, each of them haunted by missed signs, guilt, regret, a silent, shared sense of failure. The family, in their own time, turned pain into advocacy. Iyanna's mother began speaking at high schools and local youth centers. She founded the Iyanna Sawyer Foundation, focused on supporting victims of sexual abuse within families. The Foundation's message was blunt, unflinching. Monsters don't always come from outside the home. And on the anniversary of her disappearance each year, a community walk is held in her name. They carry signs, wear pink, and release lanterns into the sky. But even amid all that light, the darkness of what happened to Iana never truly fades. Because there's still no body, no burial, no resting place. Just a missing girl, a broken family, and a question that lingers unanswered. Where's Iana? Jonathan Lled was convicted, sentenced to life, locked away forever. But that wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning, because the questions didn't stop with a guilty verdict. In court, Lled claimed he had no idea where Iana's body was. But detectives believed otherwise, and they still do. Months of searches, dozens of leads, and even cadaver dogs led investigators to a landfill in Georgia, where they spent weeks combing through debris, hoping for a trace of her remains. But they found nothing. Not a hair, not a bone, nothing. And to this day, Iana Sawyer's body has never been recovered, which means her family, even after years, has never been able to lay her to rest. There's no grave to visit, no stone to etch her name into, only memory. And that memory, bright, innocent, trusting, stands in unbearable contrast to the truth. That her killer was someone she called family, someone she had once hugged on Christmas morning, someone who didn't just take her life, but tried to erase every trace of it. After all, Iana was pregnant at just 16, and not one teacher, not one friend, not one adult noticed something was wrong. Had anyone reported an uneasy feeling? Had she tried to tell someone, only to be ignored? Or was it fear, shame, loyalty? We may never know. But what we do know is that this wasn't just a crime of violence. It was a crime of trust. And that's what makes it so much harder to see coming. Some monsters don't hide in shadows. They sit at the dinner table. They smile in family photos. They tell you they love you right before they take everything. And until Iana is found, until the full truth comes to light, one question will hang in the air. Where is she? If this story moved you, consider sharing Iana's name, because her story is not just about justice. It's about prevention, and about the children still living in fear behind closed doors with no one listening. But this wasn't the only case where family became the threat. Sawyer's story should have never ended this way. She was young, bright, full of promise, and she trusted the person who took everything from her. If this story made you pause, made you angry, or made you think, don't let it end here. Backhand index pointing right, share her name. Talk about the warning signs. Break the silence. Because silence protects predators, and awareness saves lives. Speech balloon, drop a comment. What do you think could have saved Iana? Bell subscribe for more real stories that demand justice.